Welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And we have a new best guest with a very amazing background and resume. I'm going to introduce you to him in just a moment, but sad news that was expected right off the top. The OSBI just a few moments ago confirming that the two moms murdered in Oklahoma, that the remains that they found on Sunday are in fact the remains of Jillian Kelly, 39, and Veronica Butler, 27. So again, the headline is a sad one. Senseless murder. The motive seems to be a custody battle. And Jillian Kelly, 39, Veronica Butler, 27, positively ID'd as the remains that they found on Sunday in rural Oklahoma. Both of these women leave behind 6 children together, both mothers in Hugoton, Kansas. They were traveling. Jillian was traveling with Veronica in a supervisory role to supervise the visit. She was one of 4 court-appointed supervisors, so she was, I hate to say this, it's a horrible phrase, but sort of collateral damage in all this. The car was abandoned about 3 miles short of their destination, and most of you have been following the story, so just horrific news. But at least the families know now, at least, that those remains that they found on Sunday, of course, the 4 people, including Grandma Tiffany Adams, they will be in court tomorrow morning. That is something the COE and I will look at. We are trying to juggle a bunch of different things, but if possible, we will try to bring you that court hearing. I'll be honest, I'm not even sure if they are televising it or not, but we will try to get it to you tomorrow morning if we are able to. Again, Jillian Kelly, Veronica Butler, their remains found in rural Oklahoma, about 8 miles away from where their car was found abandoned. Today, we are continuing on here with the Sebastian Rogers story. Of course, he is the 15-year-old boy with autism who went missing. This is now the 7th week of this search. The Sumner County Sheriff's Office and Tennessee Bureau of Investigation said it is continuing to investigate every lead that comes in during this ongoing search for missing teen Sebastian Rogers. Obviously, it is an onerous one, to say the least. There's some contradictory statements. Sumner County is saying there's no evidence to support foul play, yet they have not ruled out foul play. So we will ask our guest about that. And right on cue here, we've got Rob D'Amico, a fellow Jerseyan from the great state of New Jersey, but also now living in the Sunshine State. A lot of us migrate south. But Rob D'Amico, who is a first-time best guest, and very glad to have him. He has served his country for 39 years over the course of a unique hybrid career in law enforcement and military service, covering counterterrorism and cybersecurity. Rob has worked tirelessly to help keep America safe. Rob joined the FBI as a special agent and was quickly assigned to infiltrate an organized crime family as an undercover agent. Rob was living amongst and working with mafia members up and down the East Coast. And he now has his own company. Rob, I don't know that I have it right in front of me here. I know I saw it say, what is the name of the company?
Sierra One Consulting.
Yeah, Sierra One Consulting. I knew it was on the tip of my tongue. And Rob does a lot of appearances in media and on media for CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and on it goes. Heather Cohen is set to join us, so she will likely be here. She's the host of Justice Warriors podcast and was featured on the Discovery ID show Secrets, Lies, and Private Eyes. And person who works alongside her at Justice Warriors is Tracy Ellis. How are you, Tracy?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. Do we know if Heather is planning on jumping on?
You should jump in any apartment complex. She was out working a job.
Yeah. Oh, and did I get the right information? Has Heather now been retained actually to work on this case, on the Sebastian Rogers case, or not?
We are going to let Heather answer that. However, he can tell by my cues. I have all my cues going. Mark McClish was we trained with Mark McClish, so that was great. He's does speech analysis and statement analysis.
Interesting. I know there've been several prominent speech analysts who think that there's some strange things going on here. And Heather Cohen is back to join us. I just introduced you, Heather. Thank you for coming back. So let's just kick things off. Rob D'Amico, our first-time guest here. Rob, 7 weeks, a missing child with autism here. It doesn't smell good at this point, and obviously time is the enemy. What do you make of this case from a macro perspective so far?
Well, from the macro perspective, you look at, you always have to, when the case starts, go with all the possibilities, because you don't want to rule one out and then close your eyes to it. And that's the dangerous part of some of these. So you want to look at if he really did just walk out of his in bare feet, how far would he go? How would he get to a place and all those things? And then you look at was he lured out via online stuff, and you start going down that road. And then you look at the one that always usually turns out to be one of the most likely ones is someone involved that knows them, and a lot of times it's domestic. So you go down those roads, and when you look at it now, how far can a 15-year-old walk in bare feet that you're not getting any? And they did the right things in the beginning. They had all the searches out, they had the canines, they had all those things that you would think lead to something. But you're also looking then at all his online stuff, his phone, his video games, all his communications. And if you're still not finding anything that's leading you down to that road that someone lured him out, that he was communicating with someone, and then you start looking at all the other things, naturally, how you track. I've been to a ton of man tracking courses as a sniper. There's ways to really look at finding a person that is just not trying to evade you, that's walking out there. But then you start looking at, like I started watching all the videos today and all the inconsistencies of people that he was involved with that are saying things. And the stories that they laid out are somewhat provable. If she said that they were at BJ's has cameras, and you can start looking at cell phone data, even on the commercial ID side of where they were during that day. And you start matching up where in that story do things start leading like from what they're not saying. But then you start looking at the commentary that he's saying, and he's getting caught up in lies from one interview to another. And you have to start like wondering, okay, why is he lying? Why is he saying one thing to one person and something else to, say, Nancy Grace or some of these other folks?
You're talking about Chris Proudfoot, the stepfather.
Yeah, the stepfather. So you start looking at that and we're like, well, like just because someone's lying doesn't mean they're lying for the reason that you think so, but you have to end up going down that route. And you're still following all the other leads with that. And then you start getting pulled back. You can't put blinders on, but you start going like, why is it not logical that we can't find a 15-year-old boy that walked out of his house without shoes, that wasn't trying to evade us, that would just naturally did that? And then you go into, we find no communications on any of his electronic devices, because by now 7 weeks, you've done all the search warrants on emails, cell phones, video games, and I've done a lot of technical things trying to find kidnapped people, that you can start going down that road and seeing who's communicating with them. And now you start bringing in all the cell data of the stories that were laid out there. I just don't understand the inconsistencies during the interviews. I did undercover and I lied to people for 2 years, and you have to stay on top of it. But these are just really bad. They're talking and they're just not remembering what they're saying, which is great for investigators to be able to start saying, well, you said this to one person. In the Nancy Grace interview, as a police officer, I would have loved it, because a lot of times when you bring them into a police station or you start interviewing them, the whole thing about, the informing of the rights and them She just went down every wicket, got both of them into a story that now that is their story that you can start unraveling, so to speak.
I heard the word sniper, Rob. So I got to ask you, where were you a sniper? What branch of the military? Was it military?
Actually, it was FBI. I was in the Marine. I was reconnaissance, and then when I was over at the hostage rescue team, I was a sniper.
Thank you for your service. Something I could never do is be a sniper. I got shaky hands. I'd never be a sniper. Annie K, always with the good questions. I'm going to throw this one over to Heather, and then we will hear from Tracy finally. But Heather, Annie K, by the way, Heather, are you working now in an official capacity on this case? Heather, yeah, I'm sorry. Got it. Yeah.
I would have my mic muted because my dog was barking. Yes, I am.
Can you tell us a little bit more?
Or, well, to be honest, I was wanting to hide, in the shadows for a little bit, but what I understand, I believe that the sheriff gave a statement to Channel 2 today that there have been 2 private investigators hired. And so the cat's out of the bag. Myself, and there is another private investigator also has been officially hired. And so, yeah.
And are you hired, if I can ask, by Sumner County? Is that who hired you?
No, no, I am hired by the biological father. And again, I didn't want that to be known publicly, but the cat's out of the bag. Everybody knows. So there's really no reason to hide it at this point.
Well, so you're hearing it here for the first time. Heather Cohen's firm, Justice Warriors, now working in an official capacity, hired by Seth Rogers. It just goes to show you the links that Seth Rogers, the father, is going to here. We're getting a little funny. if you're not speaking, if you can just keep yourselves muted, that would help me, Rob and Tracy. I know it's a little bit of a pain, and then we'll unmute as you go. But Heather, there's a question here from Annie. Is it time to try pinning the mom, Katie Proudfoot, against the father, Chris Proudfoot, with a time-limited bluff about the first one gets the deal kind of thing? Are we at that point yet where you've got to pressure one side or the other?
Well, no, I'm not at that point. I've only been working this case for 2 days. So I don't know where law enforcement are at with it. But I'm still trying to vet. I'm still trying to figure out who I even, believe should be on the radar. And I'm not at a point to, that I'm comfortable, publicly saying anything about the Proudfoots.
We're looking at a picture here, obviously, of Sebastian Rogers, missing 15-year-old. If you have tips, 1-800-TBI-FIND, or you just reach out to Heather Cohen through Surviving the Survivor at Gmail, since she's in an official capacity now. This is one photo, and this is another photo that I saw today. This is an Amber Alert. This almost looks like an AI-generated photo, but this is an Amber Alert, one of 2 that I think are still active. That may have changed since last week, but last week I know there was 1 of 2 active in the nation at that point. Tracy, I'm just wondering the same question I asked Rob, just from a very wide perspective, your thoughts on this case about a 15-year-old seemingly just disappearing out of his bedroom 7 weeks ago without shoes. Just remember to unmute yourself. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you got to remind me of that one. Several thoughts. One is, of course, she mentioned Devin Bond, a case we worked a while back, who was a teenager and went missing, just up and disappeared. Then there's Joe Clyde Daniels, Baby Joe, in this Mid-South, Middle Tennessee. He was an autistic child that disappeared. So you have those 2 cases that kind of buddy up with this case on either side. I try not to get tunnel vision. That's the worst thing you can do, is get tunnel vision if you are looking at everything. And if he was out without shoes on, maybe he walked, the camera would have gotten him, but maybe he walked somewhere and someone picked him up, so he wasn't there long without shoes. And his glasses, I'm not quite sure on the glasses if they're missing or if they found the glasses or he has the glasses with him, because why would you have the glasses with him if there was something wrong? I'm not sure that I'm still hung up on the glasses and where they are.
Yeah,
Heather,
well, I'm glad you brought that up, because at one point they said that a pair of glasses were found, and then they made it abundantly clear they were not Sebastian Rogers' glasses. But I think everyone assumed that his glasses are missing or went missing. So that's an interesting question to try to get to the bottom of. COE, this is for you from Charmaine Lilly. Joel, can we add the petition link that Seth has started to get help from the FBI? You'll find it if you Google it, and we should get that up. Rob, I'm sorry. Did you want to jump in, Rob?
No, I just, she mentioned tunnel vision, and I think that's one of the most important things, because as an investigator, having done like the sniper case, when the profilers came out and gave us a profile, everyone kind of got tunnel vision, and it really closed their eyes to those things. No matter how, I've seen so many cases that you're like, oh, the parents are guilty because they're not talking like you think they should, but everyone goes through different feelings. And then you get tunnel vision and you're not looking for those other things. So I think the most important thing is you have to keep your eyes open wide, so that when a fact or something comes up, that you're willing to go down the right road to follow it, even though like he's not making sense and we believe he's lying about something. Again, a lot of times you don't know why they're lying. They might be thinking something else, but that wide aperture of allowing the facts to tell you things, and that you go down them, that you're not afraid to, I think is one of the most important things on these cases, that you just don't know. Even though it might be really, really hard to believe that a 15-year-old walks away, and like she said, someone could have picked him up. The worst thing that in the world that could happen to this, we always say, is if he wandered out on his own, but wasn't communicating with anyone, and then somehow someone picked him up and did something to him, because then you don't have any leads of communication, and he really was not talking to anyone and just walked away. That would be the worst case scenario, but you have to follow all of them.
Lindsay Shea, thank you for this. I'll be honest, there has not been a lot of news, not a lot of movement on this, which is precisely why I'm doing it, because these cases begin to fall out of the media spotlight, and I want people to stay focused on finding Sebastian. Again, it is the 7th week that we're in here. Rob, just back to you on this. Someone brought up an interesting point that I had not seen brought up before, which is he's got a school bus driver and he's got classmates, and there's been no talk at all. I mean, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but let's just say you were the lead investigator. Are you looking at everyone? I mean, are you speaking to the bus driver? Are you speaking to the parents of classmates?
You absolutely have to. You don't know what thing that he said that may give you that he may only have trusted so many people to talk to, or said something, and you have to go back to him multiple times, because a lot of times they think they told you, and then they may remember something. It may be something that comes up, and you're looking through all his notebooks in school. Was he doodling something? Was he writing something? Did he say something offhand? And you just have to constantly go over things, and fresh set of eyes, have another investigator come in to look at it, because sometimes you get tunnel vision on something and you don't see it the same. So hopefully they're doing that. And that's, when you get into, like, if TBI gets involved or the FBI, you get fresh sets of eyes. You get people that aren't maybe locked into a local thing that's going on, to look at it differently. And you have to just keep pushing that with it. And it's one of those, you don't know where that lead's going to come from. I remember when I worked Fugitives, Saturday night when America's Most Wanted was coming on, we hated it because we were running around the city with all these crazy leads, but you never turn that off, because guess what? One of them is going to be the right lead to find something, and you just can't discount it. And if you have investigators that are burned out or something, that's the worst thing you can do, is you got to give them breaks. You got to have them come back in. You got to have someone look at it in a case like this.
So Rob, you must know our friend Lenny DePaul. He's from Fugitive Manhunters. Good dude out in New York. Linda Vergata here. This is a great question. Is there any proof that he did not have more than 3 pairs of shoes? How can we be sure? Heather, to you on this one, the information we're getting about the shoes, I believe, is coming from the mom, Katie Proudfoot. So how can we be so sure that at this point that maybe he left with another pair of shoes? I don't know.
I mean, I don't think we really can be sure of that. But I think for me, the biggest mind bender about this whole case is the fact that something that we learned today from the sheriff, which I don't know how much of this has been out publicly, but he talked to us. I sat down with Sheriff Weatherford today at the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, and he said that, you know, they've got footage from ring cams of Sebastian coming out, dropping the trash in the trash bin, going back in. They've got his lights coming on in his room. They've got footage of him going in. There's no footage of him ever coming out. I mean, that's the big mind bender here, is that there's not even any proof that he ever left the house. They have nothing. I mean, nothing.
Yeah, that's amazing right there, because you just don't even know where to begin, which is, I'm going to come back to you on that. Jody Arrington, I seem to remember law enforcement not wanting to comment about the lights. There was this talk about 2 flashlights on the front lawn. Tracy, I don't know if you recall this, but I think they went back and said, hey, those were really just floodlights from the opposite side of the house. Do you have any information on this, Tracy?
I do, and I got it from this great PI that's working the case. And yes, they were floodlights. They have determined that they were floodlights, not flashlights.
And that, I mean, that could change the perspective of the case in some ways, because I think at the point where they thought they were flashlights, they assumed that maybe it was someone possibly even leading Sebastian out, but that is proving not to be the case. This petition is what Amelia is talking about here. I signed that flyer for the FBI to take over on this case that's out, that Seth had made for Sebastian. Did you guys see that? It's huge. Rob, would the FBI ever take over a case because the public is petitioning for it? I'm curious what your thought is.
No, it's one of those where the FBI will get more involved on the request of the police. If someone could prove some for some crazy reason that it wasn't something was going on odd, maybe, but we're not going to take over the case. So those are a bit extreme. We may provide more resources based on what they're asking. If they have a lead, we may send down one of our aircraft that can even look at, we have aircraft that have sensors that can find shallow graves and some other technology that if something comes up, that they'll request it and come down. But we're not going to take the case over. We're going to just work with them.
Rob, let me ask you a question you can't answer. Why is there no shortage of violent crime in this country? Why is it just never, ever end?
Actually, I've been around the world and there's no short of violent crime anywhere. I was just talking to somebody today about this, and I just never am not surprised at the ability of other humans to harm humans. And it's worse in some places, and though this country's not short of it. And it's unbelievable when you start looking at it.
Yeah, it's I mean, it does happen elsewhere. It just seems, I mean, obviously we're here in the States, but it's got to stop. I guess it's been going on since the beginning of time. My thing is, why don't people understand like this case out of Oklahoma? I mean, these people are going to sit in prison more than likely for the rest of their lives. Why don't people think about those repercussions, Rob?
So many of them think they can get away with it. And like the more TV shows they watch, thinking they watched enough CSI to get rid of bodies or whatever. It's just amazing how stupid. It's amazing how stupid criminals are. I mean, I've seen bank robbers write the demand note on their own deposit slip and surprised that the police show up, 20 minutes after they get home. And it just gets into a point where people start, especially in groups. I mean, groupthink on things like this. You look at the people in Oklahoma, because I made some comments on that. Again, what were they thinking that it wasn't going to come back to if there's a child dispute, that it's going to come back to them? And do they really think they have the capability to hide a crime scene. You think watching CSI makes you smart enough to do it, but the technology that's coming out that the police can use, that we can bring in, is just unbelievable. But then the best part, though, is when you get an investigator who has some scientific evidence against someone who's lying, especially if you're trying to get 4 people to say the same thing. You're going to find the shortcoming in the story. You're going to find the weak one, and then you're going to go after them to tell on others. And it's one of those things I think you really have to look at on this case. Okay, if we assume the worst, that it was somehow the mom or the stepdad, what really transpired to do this? What was it? Something he did that then was an encounter that got too far? Or was it something that they had planned further on? For some reason, they wanted to get rid of him, as bad as that sounds. So then you have to look at, he says he was in, was it Memphis? I think he said
Memphis. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. Memphis.
Yeah. So many ways. Like, did he leave his cell phone in Memphis? Did the vehicle he had that has GPS, was that checked out? Was he really in Memphis? Because in order to appear in Memphis, you have to do a lot of things electronically to do that, that you can also check on. Or was it something that happened with the mom and then he came back and covered it up? What were those things? So you have to start going down, we call red selling that, like really understanding if that was what would happen, then that encounter, they saw, the camera saw him bringing the trash out. They saw his light go on. So they're putting timeline on there so that they can get it down to, okay, if something happened, it happened between this time in that house. And did they actually request to do a search warrant in the house to blacklight it, to do all the other things, on the police side, to see if a crime was committed in there? I did hear, now the shoes, though, that the biological father said 3 pairs of shoes too. And I don't know if he was those, some kids, I think my wife would be able to tell you exactly what pairs of shoes the kids had when they were little, because she was so involved with them. But I think he actually said, someone had said about furniture, and there was a new bed in the garage or something. Well, why did that happen? Why did you just get this bed that's in the garage? Is it replacing something? Start going down those roads to really see if, in fact, something happened. And, scientifically, there's lots of ways to find out, if an item was, had DNA on it and stuff like that. So they really have to start going down. I think now is a time that they really have to start pressing on, well, let us search your house. Let us do some forensic evidence collection in your house if you guys are really innocent. I don't know if that's been done or not. If they asked them, it's the same thing with the polygraph. He said he took one to one person, and he said he didn't. And they say that the police told him he didn't have to. I don't know any cop that would say, hey, you don't have to take a polygraph. Like, I would polygraph everybody, if they're willing to do it. So especially the stepdad, because even if I proved he was in Memphis, well, then I would ask him if he knew what happened to him, meaning like, maybe the mom did it and he's covering up. So that on the polygraph, I'm going to go after him on that. It's not just that he's in Memphis.
Yeah. And Nancy Grace tried cornering him into a polygraph, and he wiggled his way out of that. So, but that's, I guess, going back to the whole tunnel vision issue is, are we just so thirsty to get him? But we'll see how it plays out. This is great. We'll go in the opposite clockwise here with a guest. Nikki Cuds, our friend in the NYC in New York. Do we know, and I know he's high functioning, but Tracy, do we know his verbal communication skills, what level they are at? If he would be able to explain something to someone out in the public?
I do not know 100%. I know that he is, they were saying that he could make his way down to get some ice cream. He knew how to walk that far. He knew the route to take. He knows the route to take to his dad's house. So that tells me he is not at a extremely high IQ level on the majority of things. He has some obviously lower in that range of being able to just, I know plenty of autistic people that live their lives, go to work every day, went to college, like that. I don't think he's that capable.
Okay. Knowing that, I'm sure law enforcement knows that at this point.
Mm-hmm.
From Jazz, these are great questions coming in. Heather, I don't know if you know this, you'll probably find this out now that you're actually involved in the case. Have they done a door-to-door search in that community? Now, I do know that the Sumner County Sheriff has asked at one point, I don't know if he still is, for residents in Hendersonville, at least, to check their properties twice a day. But do you know if a door-to-door search was done, Heather?
I'm sure in the immediate area. I don't know that they've expanded out for, door-to-door knocks beyond that. But I do know that they have done 5-mile radius search. They've had the technology, the high technology aircraft that flies over that can see the thermal. The way it was explained to me during the Cummins case, that they were flying 10,000 feet above and they could see him limping through the woods. Well, that is the same technology that they used in a 5-mile radius looking through the woods for Sebastian.
Real quick, just before I forget, I'm sorry. My friend Kevin Fixler, who is AP Reporter of the Year in Idaho, he's breaking a fairly interesting and big story on Bryan Kohberger tomorrow. That will be in the Idaho Statesman, and we're going to have him on tomorrow night with some guests to discuss that. It's a busy week. And then on Thursday, we're getting some new information in the Ellen Greenberg case. I just spoke to, this is the case that I wish all these investigators would take up. Back in, I want to say it was 2011. It was 2011. Ellen Greenberg is engaged to her fiance, a guy named Sam Goldberg. It's a snowy night. And it's a nor'easter coming in. And lo and behold, he says that she was stabbed 20 times. Turns out she stabbed 20 times, 10 of them to the back of her head. 2 were after rigor mortis set in, which means that it happened after she had already died, post-mortem. So a lot of shady things going on there. It's a Philadelphia corruption story. It's been going on way too long. The case has never, ever, ever been investigated, and it's being kicked around the different districts in Pennsylvania, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So her parents are set to join us, and I'm hoping that her attorney, we're trying to do that on Thursday night. From WebFan, Joel, was the game station of Sebastian Rogers retrieved? The account saves his last interaction and whom he was playing with. Heather's nodding her head yes. Now, Heather, I've heard contradictory reports. I heard that he wasn't a gamer. He wasn't allowed to play games. And then some people say he was a gamer. You're shaking your head yes. What do you know?
He was allowed to play at his father's. His PlayStation and his father's PlayStation were both taken. They have both of them. Okay,
good. Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, obviously, we always hear about computers being seized, but I'm not sure how they will. We can ask Rob about that in a minute. But Heather, back to you. Now that you've made it publicly known that you are working on this case and you were hired by Sebastian Rogers, the biological father, where I asked you this last time, but now it's a real question. Where do you begin here?
Well, so I started with talking, trying to talk to all, the family members, the immediate family members. But where I'm at right now, all day yesterday, all day today, I've been focusing on the sex offenders in the immediate area. I found there's some very interesting facts about that. There is a sex offender, very, very close, who has several sexual or aggravated sexual assault charges, one on a minor under the age of 13.
Can you say, is this within a few blocks, a mile? I mean, roughly?
This is within a mile.
Within a mile, okay.
Correct.
So you think you'll start there looking at some of these people. Is that right?
That's where I'm at right now. Yes.
Rob D'Amico, back to you on this, and feel free to comment on that. But I'm just curious, you're 7 weeks in and nothing. Do you have to do like a proverbial reset at some point and kind of take a breath and look at everything you have and then kind of try to figure out where to pivot from?
I think you do. I would hope maybe TBI has a team to come in to do that, so that the main investigator stays on his leads and stuff, and you have a team to come in, like I said, red cell it to look at it to see if a bias is coming in there. But the sex offender, it reminds me of a story. I don't know if you remember, Jimmy Rice disappeared down in the Redlands, south of Miami, when I first got an FBI. It was one of the first big cases I worked. And we all kind of pointed, because the parents had gone away and the 17-year-old brother had some problems. We started looking at that. And it turns out later on, it was a sex offender who lived a couple miles away, got very bold and grabbed them between the bus stop 50 yards from the house. And it was one of those that a lot of people were looking at the family because there was no evidence of that grab at all. He got off the bus, was walking, and the person pulled up in a car and grabbed, pointed a gun at him, told him to come in. And it was only, I think it was, the guy worked on a kind of a farm in the area and was staying in a trailer. And the people that hired him thought some things were missing. So the husband took him to the store, and the wife walked into the trailer looking for the stuff that was stolen and saw Jimmy Rice's book bag. And that was the key. So, and it was around 7-8 weeks after that happened, but we were focused on the brother. It was, there's some issues there, and the parents were away. So it was one of those that you have to keep running down and you have to keep searching. Leads will follow up and something doesn't make sense. I think there's enough facts in both the stepdad and the mom's story that you can really start looking at it if in fact they're lying. And if they're lying, then you can start pulling apart things. And then at one point, I think they're going to find one of the lies is more so. Like if something happened with the mom and it happened there, and the stepdad came home and is helping cover it up, you're going to start seeing things, and they're going to start being able to pit one against the other type of thing, figuring out how to do that. But you still have to run down those leads with all the sex offenders and stuff like that. It may be a whole different reason why they're lying and why they're getting caught up in these lies that are silly, because you're telling one person one thing on camera and someone else something totally different. And we all kind of focus on that, but it could be that outside thing that someone came across him, and it could have been he was outside for some reason. And then that offender, did something. So keeping those eyes open, but I think a red cell team, like you talk about, to come in and put a fresh set of eyes on it to understand, are they looking in the right spot? Or is there something they're missing?
Yeah. That's actually the first time. I mean, Heather brought this up about looking for sex offenders, child sex offenders in the area. And I hadn't heard that, but obviously that is a very smart place to start.
When you start looking, it's amazing how many there are. When we looked in Redlands, and this is before apps like Citizen and stuff that tell you where they are, it was like 200 within a 10-mile, and we're like 200. We're like, holy cow. Yeah. Like, are you kidding? And then you start looking at it, and it's amazing how many are out there. They're good and those are the registered ones. And then you may have someone that didn't register.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this, Rob, but maybe a month or two ago, right here in Miami Beach on 71st and Collins, some guy charged 74th and Collins, which is the CVS my dear mother goes to. Father was walking in with his wife and child, and a guy tried to literally abduct the child, pick him up, and tried to run out the store, CVS. So it can happen in much closer proximity, I think, than even 50 yards. That was scary as hell. Analytical Blarney AB, friend of the show, gifting the memberships. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. This is just eating away at me. And Tracy, I'm curious to get your take on this. from Aria, Dakota, Grimaldi Lane, a great name. Apparently, the Proudfoots have moved out of their Tennessee home and moved to Memphis. How does this look to law enforcement? Heather's saying no. Tracy's saying no. So where are they now, Tracy?
I'm not going to say where they are.
Okay.
But they
Probably
are
smart
not in
idea.
the Memphis. They are not in the Memphis area.
Are they close to Hendersonville? Are they in Hendersonville? I mean,
Yes.
okay.
In the area. They're in the area of where they were.
But there were reports that they took off. Did that raise your alarm at all, Tracy?
It in some ways, yes. And in other ways, you got to look at it. These people are being threatened with their lives. It's full on down here. You know, when that local lynch mob gets going, they see it one way. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I can understand why they moved and needed to just get away at that point. And I did want to add too that the TBI comes in on a missing persons case, if I'm correct. However, they must be invited in if it becomes a homicide. Am I correct in that? Shake your head, Heather. Well, I'm pretty. I maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know with cases that one of the cases that in another county in Tennessee, that they were there as soon as there was a missing person. However, they were not invited into the homicide when the body was found, and they were not part of that investigation.
One thing I wanted to ask Rob about, because he's talking about inconsistencies in statements, and I watched that Nancy Grace interview, Rob, with Katie and Chris Proudfoot pretty closely. And Chris Proudfoot, at one point, when he's asked about going to Memphis, because I think at one point they did do that, he offered information. I brought this up on the show before, but it's just kind of stuck in my brain. He says to Nancy, well, Nancy, there's no way I could have done it. Something along these lines. It's a 3 hour and 37 minutes door to door. And he said exactly, it was almost like an alibi. It was almost like, hey, I couldn't have done this because look, it's 3 hours. It wasn't 3 hours and 35 minutes. It wasn't 3 hours and 30, it's 3 hours and 37 minutes. Curious if you picked up on that, what you made of it.
If I could show you my notes from that interview, I'm like 3 hours and 37 minutes, not 3.5 hours. Like, did you like it again? When you look at people, when they're lying and telling stories and making things up, what you remember and such, like the 337 was just one of those things that just caught my attention, to do that and to understand that. And it was one of those that I said, someone who's making an alibi thinks that, oh, if I give really good detail, they'll believe me type of thing, because they read that in, one of those books about, undercovering lies and such. But that amount of detail, but then again, he doesn't remember what the son was lying about when he whipped him with the belt, but he remembers the 337. So it goes in and out. They remember certain things when they want to, and they don't remember certain things when they don't want to. But it was definitely one of those, it caught my attention. And I said, someone who's like laying that alibi out thinks if I give them a lot of detail, they're going to believe me. So 3 hours and 37 minutes caught my attention right off the bat. I wrote it down saying, okay, that's a bit much for me to understand that excuse. That alibi building thing. But it, again, you go into what was, there's so many ways to be able to check certain things like license plate readers and toll things and all these other stuff and phones. If he had his phone, I can start looking at the cell tower hits on that phone because I would assume he would be talking to his wife as he's hurrying home. Like, did you find anything? Did you find anything? But also in that interview, he did say he was going back to Memphis for work. And it was a really odd, like, he didn't explain it well. He's like, yeah, I got to get back to work. And then then Nancy followed up, well, are you going? And she goes, and the wife, the wife says, yes, but not for work. I'm just going to join him. Like, from all the people I've seen on missing people, they're so afraid to even turn the porch light off, let alone leave the house, thinking for whatever reason that they need to be there. And they kind of casually say, oh, yeah, we're going for his work. But I did think of the threats there, because I do know it's like I've seen people want to move out of the house just because of all the media attention and the threats back to the family. And I can see that too. But the reason they gave was not that at all. And it was early on. I don't know when Nancy Grace's interview was, but she hit on it. Like, you're leaving the house, you're not worried about it. Like, and then the excuse was very, very bland and vague.
Yeah. Well, Rob, at one point, and I'll get back to the other two in a moment. I appreciate everyone being patient, but at one point, Rob, they did leave. I mean, that is for sure. They took off. If I have 3 children, if one of them went missing, I just know how I would react. I would never leave. I'd be at the front, steps of my house. I mean, what did you make of that? Because the previous question was, would that raise the antennae of law enforcement?
It would. Again, I have 4 kids, and my God, if anything happened, and then I don't even want to say what their mom would do, because that would be even like it's one of those mother instinctual things and parents that you would just never, I don't think, want to leave the house. But with the blinders on, that's how I would react, and that's how certain people would react. That you can't really say, well, that indicates that they did it. You still have to keep those eyes open, even though it's heightening. It's a yellow flag, because everyone thinks, oh, everyone should react with us. And I've seen other things happen where people don't react the same way you think, and you're like, oh, they're guilty because they're not doing what I would do. And as a seasoned investigator, you really learn to put that down, say it's a yellow flag. It's definitely not right. I need to check this, but not saying, oh, they're guilty, and then you focus totally on them.
So many ways this investigation could still go. Shoshana here, love that name, by the way. Heather, were Sebastian's clothes that he wore to, I think it was BJ's, found at the home? Do we know?
I actually saw that question, and I texted the other PI because she's worked it longer, and I wasn't sure that question or the answer to that question. She said that we have not received confirmation of that Seth has asked law enforcement, and they have not confirmed to him.
And then there's this question from Kelly J. Did you find it odd that Katie calls him and he calls the sheriff, not 911, and not the mother calling 911? Heather, that is curious, right?
It's interesting. And what I had been told about that was that she was supposedly on 3-way during that call, but she was muted.
It's always an answer, I guess. Rob D'Amico shaking his head. Tracy, I know you work with Heather, from what I understand. So now that you guys are officially kind of helping out here, what is your role going to be? Do you know, starting, I guess, today?
Well, I'm Heather's backup. Whatever she needs, I do it. I get it done, or I find a way to get it done. That way she can keep out there and ground pounding, going door to door and finding out what she needs to do.
And I want to get back to kind of a day in the life of you guys in just a moment. But Rob D'Amico, so Sumner County Sheriff and the TBI basically say, look, there's no foul play involved, but at the same time, in the same breath, saying foul play has not been ruled out, that no one's been cleared. So what would it take here? And I asked this last time, but what would it take to open a criminal investigation? They need some sort of hard evidence, right? Blood evidence, something along those lines.
I call that the no evidence of foul play, the Atlanta bombing thing with law enforcement, where was it Richard Jewell, the whole thing, and they got sued and stuff like that for saying he was a target. And so I think law enforcement is very, very conscious of saying that. And I think some of this, they can do a lot of things without a, quote, upfront criminal investigation. I hope they got voluntary search warrants and everything else like that. That's, again, I would just ask, can we come in and search your house? And if they say no, I would have real, like, you know, even though the Fifth Amendment stuff, I have like issues, because if it was my kid, again, I'm rational. I'd say, come in and search my house. Everything you need, I will give you. And if they don't, I would think there's something to that. So hopefully they still have a mechanism to get search warrants for electronics or emails and all these other things that you need to start doing down. Hopefully they're getting the electronic data from the cell towers and such, because sometimes you don't need that in a case where, you know, Coral's exception, where it's public safety. You're looking for someone that trying to still be alive, and you could do certain things without a criminal case. But hopefully they have some mechanism to do those. If they don't, then they really do need to open some type of inquiry or something, an assessment, to get them those powers of law enforcement to be able to look for certain information.
Robin E. Hunter, amen, amen. Heather's on the case, sending so much love and strength to find this young man, Sebastian Rogers. So, Heather, walk me, if you can, I mean, without giving away critical information, but what is a day for you like going to be, let's say tomorrow? What do you do? Are you going out into the community? Are you working on a computer? I'm just curious, the process here.
It's being out there, and it's so fly by the seat of your pants. I can't, you know, one thing may send you in this direction and that direction. I really couldn't tell you. I've been, like I said, looking into the sex offenders. I've been, of course, by the house, all that stuff, just talking to people, talking to neighbors, talking to the neighbors of the sex offenders, just trying to find somebody that's seen something. And I want to tell you too, this is interesting. After the last time, a few days ago, when I was on your podcast, I received an anonymous tip, which has also been something that I'm following up on. And so, you know, I really appreciated somebody that follows your podcast and decided to trust me with information they were afraid to go to law enforcement with.
That warms my heart. That's why we're doing these shows. Hopefully it'll bring some light. And here it is. You can send tips to Surviving the Survivor at Gmail if you want, and I'll send them on to Heather. But obviously the best way to do it is 1-800-TBI-FIND. You can call 1-800-TBI-FIND. And that's why, again, for full transparency, not a lot of new news here. But I said I want to stay on this case. This could be anyone's child, and he needs to be found. Tracy, I'm wondering, you're sort of local, I think, to the area. What the media attention has been like there. Is it dying down, or is it still making the news every night?
I'm actually in northern Mississippi, not far from Memphis, and Heather's actually in the area, but yeah, when they get there, the lynch mob get going. I mean, they just keep each other going until it gets out of hand. And that's why, and have the real facts and how it's done. And you just can't jump on the bandwagon. You have to find out. It's not dying down. It just is. Maybe the search part of it is dying down, but not the talk, and the interest is not dying down.
Yeah, and that was my next question. Heather, do we know, I mean, there were large search parties going out. Is that still happening?
There are still searches, but I did make a phone call to my friend Monica Kaysen, the founder of Q Center for Missing Persons, and we're trying to get them involved. And I'm trying to get her in touch directly with the sheriff's department to coordinate, because you know, they won't do anything without law enforcement's blessing. So they've got it. That's really our holdup right now, is just getting what they need and getting the communication line open with the sheriff's department.
Rob D'Amico from Brandy, she wants to know how many red or yellow flags need to be seen before investigators can. It's always an argument. It's either home, like you live in a home, or hone. I think the proper word is home, H-O-M-E. But how many red or yellow flags do you need before you say, okay, we're going to look at such and such person, Rob?
Well, I think, you know, yellow flags, you can start, you know, it just gets your eye up. Like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. And the more that come up. But when you start targeting them in an interview, you want to have enough facts, known facts, that you can present to them. And they've laid out their story to a number of people that then you can go back on. And I think it is a investigative strategy when to and who to go after, so to speak, in an interview. But you want to have all those things, written down, the what you can prove through, cellular and all these other things that you have, to what they said. And then you want to come in and you want to say, hey, look, I just need you to clarify some things, because you said some things and we're not seeing the actual data line up to them, and then gauge your reaction. I did a lot of interrogations overseas on counterterrorism folks on target and back in places. I never wanted to go in with the strict, this is how the interview is going to go, because I had certain facts, I had certain thoughts, and then I let the interview dictate to me and how they reacted to me and how they you get everything from the nonverbal stuff, and you get feedback, and you want to make them feel comfortable with you to tell you. And if you think one did it and one didn't do it, you got to get to that place where they feel that you're their safety to tell the truth and why they should tell the truth. So I would get as much as I could, and then I'm going to have a feeling that I could go at one of them based on my interaction with them, to maybe take that chance. But you don't want to do it too quick. You don't want it, that you think you have a fact and you don't. But the yellow flags and red flags get to, again, a seasoned investigator getting to the point where I think I can get this person. I think I can get them to either admit to it or admit to what they did in furtherance of it, based on what they have.
Yeah, and Rob's got a ton of experience and interesting insight. This is a big moment in the show. Seth Rogers, who is the biological father of Sebastian, is in the chat. And he says, as you can see here, I just want to find Sebastian. Excuse me. Seth, I just want to say to you that as a father of 3, myself and my wife works on this show, that we're thinking of you constantly, and praying that Sebastian is found. I was speaking earlier, I'm not sure how long you've been in, that as a former news guy, it's a little discouraging to me that at least nationally, it's losing a little luster. Media gets bored quickly. And I said to the COE, I said to Steve Cohen, we have to stay on this story, and brought these experts on. So just know that we are working in our very small little way. And I heard from Heather Cohen. She got a tip from our show, which I told her warms my heart. But this platform is open to you. survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. My wife, this notorious COE, is in the chat. If you need to come on here, get information out, just vent, speak to STS Nation. I always say the best guest, but the best, better nation, better community is STS Nation. And if we can help in any way, it's survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. If that means doing a show a day till we get them, let us know. And I'm glad to hear that you hired Heather, and cannot imagine what you're going through and the tireless efforts that you're putting in and the sleepless nights. It must be brutal, but know that you have a lot of support. We want you, Latoya, we want you as well. You have so much support behind you. Yes, this is true. I would say best guess, better community. Rob, anything with your vast experience that you would say to Seth? I mean, this is 7 weeks now of, I'm sure, very little sleep, not eating properly. Here's Seth. I don't have any new information currently. Rob, what would you say to Seth here?
I mean, it's survival. And we all can't imagine it, but just, surviving every day, and just doing what you can, what's in your ability, and don't lose hope, even when things look down. But it's one of those things that, everyone processes things differently, but just survive. And you got a ton of love out there. You got everyone, trying to do whatever they can for you and Sebastian. And it's one of those things that I really can't even imagine it. Again, having 4 kids, but I just guess it's hour by hour. Sometimes it's minute by minute. But you're never going to give up hope for your child. So just keep doing what you're doing. And hopefully everyone within this will bring it to a close where you just understand.
Yeah, in these situations, I always wish there's something you could say, and there's not, because if you're not in that situation, you don't understand the pain, and the not knowing. It's got to be just unbearable. But we are here, and as I said, the platform is open to you. I was actually going to ask you, Heather, if you've had a conversation with Seth, and what his state of mind is. I know he's here right now, but when you talk to him, does he still seem in good spirits?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Yes, I've had many conversations with Seth, and he is just, he hasn't, he's not able to sleep. He's not eating. Just every moment, it seems like he's just trying to find his kid. And that's
Heather, let me just interject right there. I might be wrong, but it seems like we're not hearing the same from Chris and Katie Proudfoot. We're not hearing the same desperation, the sleepless nights, the not eating. Does that concern you?
Well, I haven't had discussions with them like I have with Seth, so I can't say that they, that they're having, lavish meals and they're sleeping all night. And, I can't say that because I don't know. But, I think that we have to consider that maybe, Seth is being very, very transparent and he's front and center in the, as far as the public, and he has not been shy about saying how he feels about what happened in this case. Chris and Katie have been more reserved, and, we can interpret that however we want, but I don't think it necessarily means that they're, fine. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say right now about that. I can't really make that assumption about them.
And there's Seth and Sebastian during better days. And by the way, that's a picture of Sebastian, quite obviously with no glasses. It's just a different look for him, but look how happy Sebastian is with his dad, Seth, there. And I pray that they are reunited really quickly. Rob, back to you. We talked about the lie detector, just to kind of put a bow on that. So he's been wiggling his way, Chris Proudfoot, out of these. But I was reading today that you can trick lie detector tests, by taking a Xanax or something. Is that true? Or do those tests generally catch you?
Yeah, so there are ways to manipulate a lie detector if you understand how they work. In some of the programs I've been in, you learn because you may find yourself on one. Polygraphers know how to do it, but there's also ways now that they can detect it through. Again, I'm not going to get into all the lie detector means on that, but it still consists down to the interview, to the guy running the polygraph and how they respond, and it's amazing. It's amazing what you can get them to admit without even doing that. So it's a combination of the interview and the polygraph and how they do it. I used to have to take a polygraph every 5 years for my reinvestigation. And it just sucks getting hooked up to it. And you have the games that are being played with the polygrapher and going back and forth and such that it gets into your mind. I always say though, like a sociopath, you can't really polygraph because he has no reaction to him lying, and he has no reaction to what he's done. I remember the polygraph I took getting in the bureau, the polygrapher looked at me and goes, "Oh, you must be Catholic because you react to everything. You have that Catholic guilt type of thing." And it's funny, but when you get a seasoned polygrapher being able to look at how you respond and what you're doing, looking at the chart and such, it's one of those things. It's not just strictly a polygraph that tells you. It's the interviewer, the polygrapher interacting with the equipment and how they see, again, someone that may be reacting. Because when you lie, it's stressful and you have to relieve stress. When through their hands, if you tie my hands up, I probably can't talk, being Italian from New Jersey. But when you lie, there's all kinds of things that go with that. And you look at a polygraph where you have to sit there with your hands not moving, and there are going to be reactions to certain things. Again, if you ask Seth about it, he's going to have some significant emotional reaction to certain questions and such. He's the father. He is having that. So you have to go back and forth. So polygraph, I think, are useful. I've seen them work unbelievable. And then I've seen some people just that are so good, it's the George Costanza, if you believe it, it's not a lie. If they convince themselves that, what they're saying isn't true, you're not going to see it on the machine. But again, the polygrapher may start seeing something to help in the interview. But him trying to get out of it, I think, is a big thing, where he said, they all say up front, like, oh, I'll take a polygraph anytime. And then Nancy Grace makes it happen. And he's like, oh, no. We're not going to do that. I think that in itself starts talking to it.
Yeah. Seth Rogers back in. We all show and handle things differently. He's been nothing but all, full of grace throughout this. I don't think I'd be able to handle it that way. But people do handle things differently. I'd probably be, pointing my fingers at some people at this point. There was a good question about if Sebastian knows anyone's phone number. I don't even know if I know anyone's number anymore, because your cell phone literally has everything saved. I literally do not think I know my own mother's cell phone. I have to think about it for a minute. But Heather, do we know if Sebastian has numbers memorized that he could call if he was able to get to a phone?
I don't know the answer to that question. I just, as you were asking me, I just messaged and to see if you want to wait a couple of minutes and come back, I can give you an answer. Yeah.
And then Tracy, to you, one thing I'm curious about is just your thought on community involvement here. I mean, the community has been heavily involved. They've been handing out flyers, like we said earlier, conducting their own searches. How critical is a very aware community to solving a case like this?
Very aware that it's imperative. You have to have the community involved. You have to have people wanting to find this child. And the community has been very involved. They were involved at Tennessee. It's a volunteer state. They're always, whenever there's a missing child or a missing person, they are they come together. They really come together.
This is another great question. I'm going to toss to Rob here, and I've got another one for Rob. By the way, Heather, I mean this with all love. I love that you're reminding me of Edward R. Murrow. No one smokes on camera anymore, except the old 1950s news guys. I don't know if that's a vape pen or what, but
it's
every
been
time.
a really stressful day. Okay.
Hey, to each his own. I'm just saying, it reminds me of the old news days where they used to smoke on set. And they used to smoke in airplanes. From C. Taylor, Rob, to you, why did no cameras, and we don't know this for sure, but it seems this way, why did no cameras catch Sebastian on camera Sunday night, Monday morning if he left the house or someone lured him? Did all neighborhood Ring cameras go down at the same time? I mean, there are cameras out there, Rob. You got to assume that the TBI and everyone involved has looked through this many, many times. It's a great question. Your thoughts on an answer here?
So I have, 7 cameras in around my house. It all depends on the ability for the IR light at that time to pick something up. So infrared light, some cameras have it internal, but it only goes out 20 feet. If there was a light on, say, their front porch, and the Ring camera's across the street, it would pick that up. But if there was no light on the front porch, that Ring camera doesn't have an IR light that's going to be able to pick something up 20, 30 yards across the street. So it all depends on lighting and what is captured and stuff. So I guarantee, like, the police have looked over those. They probably have sent those up to the further labs where you can try to enhance it and do other things to the video. But if the camera doesn't have the ability, if it doesn't have the pixels and the infrared light to shine on that, it picked them up, bringing someone bringing the trash to the, front thing. I don't know if the resolution was good enough to say it was, if it was him. It could have been somebody bringing the trash, and it could have been him. It could have been his mom. It could have been someone else. Doesn't have the resolution to say who that fact was. So if you have
Rob, here's sort of a follow-up to this while we're on the topic from Samantha Ferroni, a fellow Italian. I don't know if she's from New Jersey. I miss my Jersey Italians. Us Jewish people and the Jersey Italians, we get along well. We all move our hands wildly. Here's a $5 super chat. From an investigative standpoint, being cameras don't show Sebastian leaving the home, what is required now to have the homes tested forensically with luminol, things of that nature?
One, I would just ask voluntarily. I mean, and that's the simplest way. Like, look, if he left the home, let us come in and look at it forensically. And if they say no, and I don't know if they have counsel, who I'm sure would say no for them, but then I think there's enough in here to understand, to get a search warrant, because a search warrant's based on that you've done everything else in this. You have to have some probable cause. But if you go down and start saying how the physical search of a boy that had, supposedly no shoes, could walk and nothing came up, and then you find no online chatter of him linking up with somebody, that maybe you couldn't talk a judge into getting a search warrant to do that in the house. If he in fact left, there's going to be no forensic crime scene in there. But it's one of those things going back and forth with your district attorney and what you have in the case, what they really truly have, that we may not be seeing to get that search. I would just voluntarily ask, say, look, if he left the house, let us do a forensic analysis of the house, of the home, to see. I would be surprised they didn't do that already. It's just one of those things.
I mean, the chances are pretty good that they've done that, correct? I hope.
I would think so. And the girls may know more. I would think they would, way before this.
Yeah. Here's Seth Rogers with a little bit of good news that Sebastian has his cell phone memorized. So that is a good thing. So if he was able to get to a cell phone, he would know the number of his father, and he'd be able to reach out. So let's pray that phone rings and rings soon. Rob, I want to go back to you because this is kind of your world too. The TBI, this was a direct quote from a week or so ago. He says that they're all ready to go if they were to get some sort of big tip, and went on to say that a sophisticated mapping system shows all of the ground covered. What is this mapping system that they're talking about that they use here, and how is it used?
I don't know which one. There's a number of ARC systems out there that hopefully you put certain trackers with the different groups that are searching, and those GPS trackers then document where the searchers have been. That then they can overlay what they have and what they've seen. Hopefully overlay it if I think someone had said that they have thermal ability from some of the aircraft, that they can overlay the thermal imagery with what they searched, even though that can change to a point. So I'm not there's a number of different mapping systems out there that they may have used. I think the FBI uses one, and TBI may be using another one, but it's all based on taking the maps and then having the trackers, the searchers have instruments, and it could be that they voluntarily use their phone to be able to do that, so that they can turn their phone in and you get the GPS data off the phone, so that you understand where search groups were.
Shoshana with another good question here. I'll toss this one to Tracy. On the dispatch recording, law enforcement says Sebastian would go back to his old school when he got in trouble. Was the wooded area on the route to the old school searched? My hope is yes. Tracy, do we know?
I do not know where that is within the search. No, I do not know.
Heather, do you happen to know the answer to that?
I believe it was. I'm confirming right now, but yeah, I believe it. Yes, it was. And also, to answer the question about the mapping system, it's Sartopo, and that's what they have used, Sartopo, which is the tracking that he's talking about.
Heather, last time you were on, and then we will begin to get final thoughts after this. You had 4 different questions that you said you wanted answers to. Was Sebastian being bullied at school? Do we know the answer to that?
I don't believe he was. I did ask that question. It was one of the first questions I asked, and the answer was no. Seth, the father, said he didn't think he was being bullied.
Second question was, which online platforms and games did Sebastian have access to? Do you know that answer?
The PlayStation, Switch, and that's all that I know of. I guess Seth did confirm. I don't believe he's on any sort of social media platforms or anything like that. Just the PlayStation and Switch.
This was an important question you had. Had Sebastian ever shown signs of depression or tendencies to possibly unalive himself? Any word on that? Seems like a very happy-go-lucky kid.
No, not that I've been made aware of.
Yeah, and the final question you had was, were there weapons in the home? And were any of those weapons missing? Did you get an answer?
Yes, weapons in the home, but because I haven't had an opportunity to actually sit down and interview the Proudfoots, I don't know whether any were missing.
Well, it was amazing to have this panel back here today, and obviously to have Seth Rogers in the chat. And I'll look for a few more questions. You see Tammy Selby here saying prayers for Sebastian and Seth. And again, whatever we can do to help Seth, we are here. And I hope you got that email. If you didn't, everyone let him know. survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. This platform is open for him, and we're now 108,000 strong at STS as we continue to grow. So it's a strong platform, and hopefully it will be used for good. One of the people doing good is Tracy Ellis, who works alongside Heather Cohen as part of Justice Warriors and the private investigation agency that Heather runs. Tracy, just your final thoughts tonight and what your plans are regarding this case moving forward.
I normally do not work case in it, but Heather told me I was, so I did. But the fact that he's been gone so long just breaks my heart. That's the scary part to me, is how long he's been gone. To continue to dive into those rabbit holes until I can rule things out. That's how I do it. I go and rule it out. Just like the 3:37, he said 3 hours and 37 minutes. I remember that because when I put something up on my GPS, I remember those numbers exactly. And he's going back and forth to Memphis. So is that why he said that, or is it not? Those are the rabbit holes I have to get the answers to be able to check it off the list.
And hopefully you get those answers soon. I'm just going to pop you back on mute here. You see the emotion pouring in. We love you, Seth. Someone else just had another amazing comment from Brandy. Maybe I missed this too, but did you confirm that the TBI has done forensic testing in the home? Heather, do we know?
What I have been told is that they did thermal imaging to look into the walls. I don't know about luminol and, actually looking for blood. That hasn't been confirmed to me. I'm not sure, but I do know that since they have no evidence that he ever came out of the house, they were doing thermal imaging.
And she does have a work van. She described that on the Nancy Grace interview. Do we know if that work van has been checked?
No, I don't know that the work van has been checked. Okay, so I just got the message. The other PI is listening, so she's sending me messages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she said not to our knowledge.
Okay. That other PI is welcome as well. Questions are flying in here. Heather, can we confirm that there was no scent trail detected of him leaving the house that morning?
I believe there was a scent trail. From what I understand, it stopped at the construction area behind the house where they're building homes. And it stopped at the edge of a pond.
Okay. And this is a great question from Jimmy McNutty. Do we know when the last time somebody other than the Proudfoot saw Sebastian? That would be real important in putting together a timeline, obviously. Do we know that, Heather?
That's going to be when they were at, I can't remember which restaurant it was off the top of my head, but they had gone to Strike and Bowl, and then they had gone out to eat, and then they went home. So it would have been while they were out eating.
It was amazing again to have Heather Cohen on. She is the host of Justice Warriors podcast, featured on the Discovery ID show Secrets, Lies, and Private Eyes. She used to be the Tennessee State coordinator for the Q Center for Missing Persons. And as you heard live on Surviving the Survivor, she's been retained by Seth Rogers, Sebastian's father, to become an active private investigator in this case. Your final thoughts here tonight, Heather?
Yeah, actually, I do have something I would like to say. Emotions are really high. Cases like this there's a lot of drama surrounding it. This was my second full day working the case, and a lot of time is wasted just trying to deal with all the drama. And what I want to say is, we just all need to, we're not team Chris and Katie or team Seth. It should be team Sebastian. We should all just set some things aside and work together and find Sebastian.
Well said. Finding Sebastian is the only goal right now. First time for Rob D'Amico. Hope it's the first of many. He's a founder and president and CEO and whatever he wants to be of Sierra One Consulting. As you heard, he served our nation as a Marine and also as an FBI special agent. And all around, you can tell a good guy who does a lot of media. And you can find him on CNN, Fox, MSNBC. How would you put a bow on this for this evening's show, Rob, in terms of where we've come and where we need to go? And obviously keeping Seth Rogers, who's Sebastian's father, in mind as we wrap up here.
I think we still have to go back to the investigators are investigators. They are doing everything they can. I'm hoping they're getting all the resources to do this, and everyone has, they talked about the drama that gets involved in this. You just have to keep that clear head of what are facts, what are your suspicions if you're an investigator, and then, if you have a suspicion, how do you get facts to back that up to either prove it or disprove it? So many times these things, they end up like people think, and then you have that big surprise. But going back to, as I said, like, everything's about finding Sebastian and getting to that point where we know what happened. And people think certain things, but you don't have all the facts, you don't have all the evidence. Keeping those blinders open so when that lead comes in, that takes you that route, that you're not so close that you ignore it and you follow it to the logical conclusion. And it's just so hard because everyone sees it and you think this is how I would react if it was my child, but you're not there. So you don't really know. And I've seen people react 180 degrees from each other. As a young investigator, you have a tendency to go with that. And as a more seasoned one, you're like, okay, I'm gonna note that and put it away and keep on my investigation where it leads me.
COE doesn't know we already hit this super chat, but the show today is all about finding this guy, 15-year-old Sebastian Rogers, who's on the autism spectrum. Tip line is 1-800-TBI-FIND. If for some reason you don't want to reach out there, you can always email us at survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com, and I'll make sure I get it to Heather Cohen, who's now working in concert with Seth Rogers. It was amazing to have Seth in the chat today. Amazing to have Heather and Tracy, and of course a fellow Jerseyan. Rob, you're right up the road from us, so Steve Cohen and I hopefully will take you to lunch one of these days very soon, and hope to get you back on the show tomorrow. Again, we're back talking Brian Kohberger. There's going to be a story published tomorrow in the Idaho Statesman that will be of interest, and we will catch up on that case. And then Thursday, the very disturbing case of Ellen Greenberg, stabbed 20 times, 10 to the back of her neck and back, 2 that were inflicted post-mortem, but that case has never, ever been investigated. You see here Granny saying Sebastian Strong. I like Granny's name. I like saying the word Granny. So appreciate you all being here. Speaking of grannies, I'm off to see Carm right now. We've got some books to sign. So until then, love you, America. There's my Geraldo Rivera homage. Love you, Florida. Love you, Tennessee. Love you, Mississippi. Of course, we love you, Sebastian Rogers. And our thoughts tonight are with Seth Rogers. Don't mean to block anyone there, but we will see you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern time on Brian Kohberger. Have a good night, everybody. Panel, stick around 1 second for me.